Okay, so this is an analysis of the text feed by MT Anderson. There'll be 4 sections to this lecture, and the first one will be the addiction to social media. The addictive qualities of technological connections are the greatest warning that Anderson can give the responder about the hidden dangers of social interactions of this nature. In this instance, the disconnection has tremendous symbolic relevance as it depicts a loss of control, even though, ironically, control is the last thing that Titus, some would say the protagonist in this text, even though Violet is, has. This is an increasing focus about the addictive nature of social interactions that have a technological base, most namely social media. When Titus wakes up in the hospital and is instantly confronted and challenged by the fact that he's been disconnected from the feed net, and furthermore, that his head is quiet, that's a quote for this particular analysis, there is a genuine sense of frustration and, to a greater extent, a lack of stability to his persona. Anderson makes a clear initiative to illustrate to the responder the addictive nature technology entails. This is most apparent when the nature of the technological connection is based on self-loathing and self-gratification. This pageantry of vanity is a direct repercussion of a society that is based around the ease of connectivity and its alignment to our social lives. In the hospital, Titus finds life boring without the constant input of the feed. He reflects that when feeds were first invented, people were excited at their educational value. At this point, the responder makes a stark comparison to the initial impact digital phones had on the marketplace when first introduced. The initial marketing angle of the BlackBerry and the iPhone were on an educational basis, with a focus also on the employment sector. However, this was lost to consumerism and multinational greed, and most aptly portrayed in this text. Homeschooling. Homeschooling is considered an ideology rather than a cottage industry. This is clearly depicted by Anderson on his understanding of its effect in a developing contemporary society. One of Anderson's central characters, Violet, is homeschooled by her mother. This is a concise initiative on the part of the writer to illustrate the clinical dismantling of our most treasured institutions through the infiltration of big business and corporation. The metaphor behind Violet's education is that there is a sense of anarchy against the current contemporary trends in educational policy. Anderson makes a very clear point about the corruption of education systems and their connections with modern schooling carriageways and education applications such as Apple TV and Google. These particular carriageways in many ways have bastardized educational content and how it is streamed and how it's delivered. Anderson's view of the world and media platforms which shape the world around him have had a big impact on his creation of characters. The responder is both challenged and confronted by Violet Mother's decision to homeschool her. The responder can shape meaning from Anderson's rigid views on the evolution of technology in the classroom and the controlling effects on institutional indoctrination and its effect on students. The power of social interaction has really evolved in this particular chapter of Anderson's text. The lack of ethics associated with contemporary interactions demonstrate a clear and present danger not only for the protagonist but also the responder and society itself. The Terrarium. The value and beauty of the past and its eccentric identity is discussed in this chapter. The powerful motif of the terrarium in the hospital has tremendous significant impetus in relation to Anderson's themes for his text. It depicts a secluded and yet idealistic piece of nature, something that is natural, real, and cannot be digitally replicated or put through a feed. In many ways, this is the beauty of free thought that is not hijacked or debased by the poison of consumerism and capitalistic ideology. After showing Titus the terrarium, he later learns that Violet knows how to write with a pen. The pen itself has tremendous symbolic relevance as it consolidates Anderson's view about the past and the value of free thought through intimate exchange of older communication forms. Even though simplistic, something as meagre as a piece of pen and paper are the beginning to some of the most beautiful and powerful pieces of text in human history. They have transformed societies, people, and civilizations. And whilst not always being honest, they've always had a sense of authenticity. The purity of an intimate exchange has been diluted and infiltrated with sinister undertones. The quote, "Nobody writes on paper anymore." Even though slow and the social interactions on pen and paper were genuine, valid, and most importantly, they were progressive. Social interactions are shaped by the nature of our communication in both mode and sentiment. Finally, Violet, our tragic hero. The end of the novel poses a very interesting question about the power of genuine social interaction or lack thereof. At the same time, Anderson warns society about the fate of human progression. The quote, "I am a dim light." The death of Violet is ironic in many ways, as she has now progressed into the novel's tragic hero, all for the greater good of humanity and society. In the beginning, Violet clearly represents hope. She was stoic and even displayed signs of resilience, akin to the saying, "Rays of Violet." Our new hero was a fighter who died for a cause. Her symbolism is immense, and just like somewhat of a martyr, it seemed she would be of greater purpose in death rather than in life, as her tragic death is a lesson for us all who read the text. Thus, the genius behind Anderson's work is clearly evident in this recreation that depicts a dismantling of the human race as a result of the debasement of social interaction and the breakdown of human language, while succumbing to the evils of consumerism and narcissism. Violet's death is a foreshadowing that is based upon the consequences of the choices we as a society make about our communications need. The quote, feed-centered. This particular form of communication and its multimodal capacity has tempted our society to take a bite of an apple that promised sweetness but delivered death. Violet's death should not be in vain due to the emotional plea from the author about the ethics of the feed and the direction that humanity takes. The common cliche, a catch-22, is what Anderson is creating for the audience, and that is the diluting of a clear line between progression and the illusion of progression. This is the end.